atmospheric dome in shades of blood and rust. Nathan Reed adjusted the environmental controls in the hydroponics bay, his weathered hands moving with practiced efficiency across the console. Behind him, his 3-year-old daughter Luna played among the towering vegetation, her pearlescent skin catching the red light and reflecting it in mesmerizing patterns. "Papa, look!" Luna called out, pointing to a flowering plant that had begun to pulse with bioluminescence. "It's singing to me again." Nathan smiled, though his heart ached at the sight. Luna's ability to communicate with organic matter was a gift from her mother's species, the Lemurians. It was just one of many reminders of Arya that he faced each day. The colony's warning system suddenly blared to life, its harsh tone cutting through the peaceful atmosphere of the hydroponics bay. "Attention all residents, solar storm approaching. Severity level 8. Please proceed to designated shelter areas immediately." Nathan scooped Luna into his arms, her slight weight familiar and precious. "Time to go underground, Starlight," he whispered, using the nickname that had stuck since her first night under Kepler's strange sky. As they made their way through the colony's corridors, other families hurried past, all heading for the underground bunkers. Nathan nodded to familiar faces, fellow colonists who had helped him raise Luna after Arya's departure. None of them had judged him for falling in love with a Lemurian, nor for being left to raise their hybrid child alone. The bunker's massive doors were just beginning to close when a figure materialized from the shadows near the entrance. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. After 3 years, he would still recognize that ethereal grace anywhere. Arya stood before them, her pearlescent skin darker than Luna's but with the same hypnotic patterns. Her eyes, with their characteristic spiral pupils, fixed on their daughter with an intensity that made Nathan instinctively hold Luna tighter. "Nathan," Arya's voice carried the same musical quality he remembered, though now it trembled with emotion. "Please, I need to speak with you. It's about Luna's safety." The solar storm raged overhead, but a different kind of storm began to brew in Nathan's heart. 3 years of questions, anger, and longing threatened to overwhelm him. Luna stirred in his arms, her small hand reaching toward Arya with innocent curiosity. "Mama?" The word fell from Luna's lips like a pebble into still water, creating ripples that seemed to shake all 3 of them. Before Nathan could respond, the bunker's emergency systems registered a massive solar flare. The lights flickered, and in that moment of darkness, Arya moved closer, her natural bioluminescence casting a soft glow around them. "The storm isn't natural," she whispered urgently. "They're using it as cover. The Genetic Council, they've found us." "Found her?" Her eyes darted to Luna, who was watching her mother with a mixture of fascination and uncertainty. Nathan wanted to reject her words, to tell her she had no right to return with warnings after abandoning them. But the scientist in him had already noticed the unusual patterns in the solar activity. And the father in him couldn't ignore any threat to Luna's safety. "We have 5 minutes before the bunker seals completely," he said finally, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "Start talking." The story of why Arya had left, and why she had chosen this moment to return, would change everything Nathan thought he knew about the past 3 years. As the solar storm raged above them, 3 lives that had been torn apart began the complicated process of finding their way back together, but this time, the stakes were higher than just their hearts. Luna, still in her father's arms, reached out and touched her mother's cheek. Where their skin met, a soft glow pulsed in time with their heartbeats, a reminder of the unique bond they shared. Nathan watched as tears traced luminescent paths down Arya's face, and felt his resolve beginning to crack. The next few hours would test them all, but for now, they had found shelter from one storm, even as a greater one approached on the horizon. Waited 3 years to hear. Around them, other colonists settled into their designated areas, their murmured conversations creating a backdrop of white noise that ensured privacy for the family's reunion. The Genetic Council doesn't just preserve our species' purity, Arya explained, her luminescent patterns dimming with distress. They've been conducting experiments on hybrid children. They believe our genetic compatibility with humans holds the key to evolving our species beyond its current limitations. Nathan cradled the sleeping Luna closer, his jaw tightening. And they want our daughter. Not just want, Arya's voice dropped to barely a whisper. They engineered this entire situation. My assignment to the First Contact team, our meeting, even the approval for our marriage, it was all orchestrated. They wanted to create a perfect hybrid specimen. The revelation hit Nathan like a physical blow. Our love was an experiment to them? Arya's patterns flared with sudden intensity. No. What grew between us was real. When I discovered their plans, when I learned what they intended for our child. Her voice broke. I ran to protect you both. To throw them off your trail. By abandoning us? The bitterness in Nathan's voice made Luna stir in her sleep. By making them believe I had terminated the pregnancy, Arya countered. It worked for 3 years. But now? She gestured to the screens showing the artificial solar storm raging above. They've found us. A small sound drew their attention. Luna had awakened, and the plants in her vicinity, even the emergency ration packs with their engineered vegetation, were responding to her presence. Tiny points of light danced around her like fireflies, a display of power neither parent had seen before. She's stronger than they predicted, Arya breathed, wonder and fear mixing in her voice. The combination of human adaptability and Lemurian energy manipulation. Nathan watched their daughter with new eyes. He'd always known she was special, but he'd attributed her abilities to her Lemurian heritage. Now he understood, she wasn't just carrying 2 separate genetic legacies, she was something entirely new. How long do we have? He asked, shifting seamlessly from bitter ex-husband to protective father. The storm will last another 12 hours. They'll use it as cover to send in extraction teams. Arya's patterns shifted to what Nathan recognized as her tactical analysis configuration. We need to be gone before then. Gone? This is our home. The only home Luna has ever known. And it's compromised. Arya reached into her biosuit and withdrew a small crystal matrix. Every communication, every supply shipment, they've been monitoring it all. But I have something they don't. She held up the crystal, which pulsed with an inner light. The location of others like us. Other Lemurian human couples who've gone into hiding. There's a network, Nathan. We're not alone. Before Nathan could respond, Luna wiggled free from his arms and walked to one of the bunker's structural support columns. She placed her small hand against it, and suddenly every power indicator in the bunker began to fluctuate. Papa, Mama, she said, her voice carrying an odd echo. They're coming through the ground. The words had barely left her mouth when the first tremor shook the bunker. Arya's patterns flashed in alarm. They're using magma tunnelers. We've got minutes, not hours. Nathan was already moving, years of colony emergency drills kicking in. He scooped up Luna while mentally cataloging escape routes. There's a maintenance shaft that connects to the old mining tunnels. If we can reach the North Junction. I can hide our energy signatures, Arya added, falling into step beside him. But Luna needs to stay calm. Her power spikes are like beacons to them. They reached the maintenance access as the second tremor hit. Nathan punched in his override code, grateful now for all the extra clearance he'd insisted on as head of hydroponics. The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Luna clutched at Nathan's neck as they entered the dark passage, but her voice was steady when she spoke. The plants and the tunnels will help us, Papa. They remember me. Nathan and Arya exchanged looks in the darkness. Their daughter's connection to organic matter had always been strong, but this level of communication was unprecedented. The implications would have to wait, though. Right now, survival was all that mattered. As they moved deeper into the tunnels, bioluminescent fungi began to glow in their wake, responding to Luna's presence. The light was both beautiful and dangerous, a trail of breadcrumbs for anyone following them. But as Nathan opened his mouth to warn them, he noticed something strange. The fungi behind them were going dark again, systematically erasing their path. "She's learning," Arya whispered, pride and fear mingling in her voice. "Every minute, every new challenge, she's evolving." Another tremor rocked the tunnel, closer this time. Above them, the artificial solar storm continued to rage, covering the sounds of their pursuers' approach. They were running out of time, but for the first time in 3 years, they were running together. Luminescent minerals that pulsed in response to Luna's presence. Nathan led them through the maze, his years of studying the colony's infrastructure finally paying off. Behind them, the rhythmic thrum of magma tunnelers grew steadily closer. "They're hurting us," Arya said suddenly, her patterns flickering with realization. "These tremors, they're too precise. They're driving us toward something." Nathan paused at an intersection, his mind racing through the tunnel system's layout. "The mineral processing plant," he breathed. "It's the only facility down here big enough to stage an ambush." Luna, who had been unusually quiet, tugged at her father's sleeve. "The crystals are scared," she whispered. "They say bad people put something in their heart." Arya's spiral pupils contracted sharply. "They've weaponized the processing plant's core. It's designed to destabilize our energy matrices." Her patterns dimmed. "They don't care if they kill me, as long as they can capture Luna." Nathan's jaw clenched. The sight of Arya's fear for their daughter was rapidly eroding the walls he'd built around his heart these past 3 years. "Then we don't give them the chance. There's an abandoned survey shaft about 100 meters back. It's not on any official maps." A violent tremor nearly knocked them off their feet, showering them with loose mineral fragments. Luna reached out instinctively, and the falling crystals froze in mid-air, suspended in a web of softly pulsing light. "That's impossible," Arya gasped. "Even full-grown Lemurians can't manipulate crystalline matter at that scale." Nathan watched in awe as their daughter gently redirected the suspended minerals to form a protective barrier behind them. "She's been doing impossible things since the day she was born," he said softly. "Remember?" The memory passed between them like an electric current: Luna's birth during a cosmic radiation storm, how the hospital's instruments had gone haywire, the way every plant in the medical bay had burst into simultaneous bloom. They'd been so young, so unprepared for the magnitude of what they'd created together. "The survey shaft," Arya said, pulling them back to the present. "How far does it go?" "All the way to the surface, if we can reach it." "But..." Nathan hesitated. "It comes up outside the colony's atmospheric dome." Arya's patterns shifted to a configuration Nathan had never seen before. "I can protect us from the atmosphere. But Nathan, you have to understand, if I extend my field to cover all 3 of us, they'll detect the power signature instantly. Then we need a distraction." Nathan pulled out his tablet, fingers flying over the controls. "The hydroponics bay environmental systems are still linked to my credentials. If I trigger a complete shutdown, the resulting biomass evacuation would mask our energy signatures," Arya finished, falling into their old habit of completing each other's thoughts. "But Nathan, those plants are your life's work." He met her eyes steadily. "You're not the only one who can sacrifice something to protect our daughter." Luna, who had been studying the crystalline barrier she'd created, suddenly stiffened. "They're changing the song," she said urgently. "The crystals, they're making them hurt." A high-pitched whine filled the tunnel, and the mineral veins in the walls began to vibrate. Arya cried out, her patterns fluctuating wildly as the weaponized frequencies attacked her energy matrix. Without thinking, Nathan pulled her close, trying to shield her with his body. "I can help." Luna pressed her hands against the tunnel walls, and suddenly the crystal veins blazed with white light. The painful frequencies shifted, transformed by Luna's unprecedented control into something entirely new. The attacking vibrations became harmonious, protective. "She's rewriting their weapons' fundamental programming," Arya said in amazement, her pattern stabilizing. "How is she doing this?" "Human adaptability," Nathan replied, managing a grim smile. "Combined with Lemurian energy manipulation. You said it yourself, she's something entirely new." But Luna's effort was clearly costing her. Sweat beaded on her pearlescent skin, and her small frame trembled with exertion. "I can't hold it very long," she whimpered. Nathan scooped her up while Arya took point, her own powers reinforcing their daughter's protective harmonics. They ran for the survey shaft, pursued by the sound of failing equipment and frustrated shouts as their attackers' weapons backfired. The shaft's entrance was exactly where Nathan remembered, hidden behind a holographic projection of solid rock. As Arya worked to extend her atmospheric protection field around them, Nathan took one last look at the tablet showing the hydroponics bay systems. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the plants that had been his companions these past lonely years. Then he initiated the shutdown sequence. Miles above them, 10 years of carefully cultivated alien flora began their emergency evacuation, creating a chaotic storm of organic matter and energy signatures that would confuse their pursuers' sensors. "Ready?" Arya asked, her field now fully extended around them. In her arms, Luna had finally succumbed to exhaustion, her small face peaceful in sleep. Nathan took a deep breath and nodded. "Together?" "Together," Arya confirmed, and for the first time since she'd returned, her patterns showed no trace of uncertainty. They stepped into the shaft, beginning their ascent toward Kepler 186f's hostile surface. Whether they would find salvation or destruction under that blood-red sky remained to be seen, but they would face it as a family, however unconventional, however broken and reformed they might be. Crimson light from the dying sun painted the rocky landscape in shades of blood and rust, while toxic winds howled across the barren plains. Within Arya's protective energy field, Nathan held Luna close as they made their way toward the distant mountains. "The emergency beacon activated," Arya said, her patterns shifting to compensate for the atmospheric interference. "Our contact should meet us at the ridge before sunrise. If we make it that far." Nathan gestured to the horizon where ominous shapes were emerging from the artificial storm. "Those look like pursuit vessels." Luna stirred in his arms, her eyes opening to reveal pupils swirling with unprecedented patterns. "The ground remembers others like us," she murmured. "They crossed here before, leaving paths of light." Nathan and Arya exchanged glances. Their daughter's connection to the planet itself seemed to be growing stronger with each passing hour. The implications were both wonderful and terrifying. "She's right," Arya confirmed, her own senses extending. "There are trace energy signatures, a network of safe passages created by other hybrids and their families. But they're faint, almost. Like breadcrumbs," Nathan finished. "Your underground railroad for hybrid families." A blast of energy suddenly seared the ground near them, forcing them to dive behind a rocky outcropping. The pursuit vessels were closing in, their weapon systems clearly calibrated to penetrate Arya's protective field. "We need cover," Nathan said, his military training from the early colony days kicking in. "Those ships are designed for atmospheric combat. If we can make it to the cave systems." Luna unexpectedly squirmed from his grasp, placing her small hands on the rocky ground. "I can help," she said with determined concentration. "The stones want to help too." Before either parent could stop her, Luna's power surged outward. The mineral deposits in the surrounding rocks began to crystallize and grow at impossible speeds, forming a spreading lattice of refractory surfaces. The pursuing ship's energy weapons struck the crystal formations and scattered, creating a dazzling display of redirected power. "That's my girl," Nathan breathed, pride warring with concern as he watched Luna manipulate matter on a scale that should have been impossible. But the effort was clearly draining her. Blood began to trickle from her nose, its pearlescent sheen betraying her hybrid nature. Arya moved to stop her, but Luna's voice carried a strange echo as she spoke. "Not yet, Mama. The others are coming. The bright ones." As if summoned by her words, new ships appeared from within the storm. Unlike the brutal efficiency of the pursuit vessels, these craft moved with an organic grace that spoke of Lemurian design. The crystal formations Luna had created began to pulse in rhythm with the approaching ships. "The resistance," Arya explained quickly as the newcomers engaged their pursuers. Led by a group of Lemurian scientists who opposed the Genetic Council's experiments. "They've been helping hybrid families escape for years." Nathan watched the aerial battle with strategic interest, noting how the resistance ships used the crystal formations as amplification points for their energy weapons. Luna didn't just create cover, he realized. She built them a combat grid. The cost of such power became immediately apparent as Luna sagged in his arms, her skin losing its luminescence. "Too bright," she whispered. "The light hurts." Arya's patterns flared with maternal alarm. Her hybrid physiology is destabilizing. The power surge was too much for her cellular structure. Her hands moved over their daughter with diagnostic precision. "She needs an energy transfer, but out here, exposed to the atmosphere." "Then use me," Nathan said without hesitation. "You always said humans had untapped potential for energy manipulation. If Luna got her abilities from both of us, there has to be something you can work with." Above them, the battle raged on, but Arya's focus narrowed to her family. "It's dangerous, Nathan. The transfer process, it would create a permanent bond. You'd be linked to both of us, able to sense our energy patterns, feel our emotions. You say that like it would be a bad thing." Despite everything, despite the years of anger and loss, Nathan managed a smile. "I already feel everything where you two are concerned. Might as well make it official." A direct hit from a pursuit vessel rocked their position, reminding them that time was running out. Luna's breathing had grown shallow, her usual glow dimming to almost nothing. "Together?" Arya asked, echoing their earlier exchange. "Together," Nathan confirmed. As the resistance ships provided cover, Arya initiated the transfer. Energy flowed between the three of them, creating patterns more complex and beautiful than anything the Genetic Council had ever imagined. Human adaptability met Lemurian power in a perfectly balanced exchange, with Luna as the bridge between worlds. In that moment of connection, they saw each other completely. Arya's fear and love that had driven her to leave, Nathan's unwavering devotion to their child, Luna's unique perspective of a universe where all energy sang in harmony. Their small family became something greater than the sum of its parts, a new template for what was possible when artificial boundaries were ignored in favor of love. The transfer ended just as the last pursuit vessel fell to the Resistance's superior tactics. Luna's eyes fluttered open, her glow restored but somehow different, more stable. The patterns beneath her skin now contained hints of her father's energy signature, while Nathan found he could sense the pulse of power that had always been Arya's mother tongue. "The bright ones are here," Luna said softly as the resistance ships landed nearby. "They feel like family too." Within storms that had raged for millennia. Through the quantum glass windows of their new quarters, Nathan watched multicolored lightning illuminate the swirling clouds while Luna slept peacefully in the adjacent room. The energy transfer had stabilized her condition, but more importantly, it had transformed their family into something unprecedented. The medical team is amazed by her readings, Arya said softly, entering the room with her patterns displaying cautious optimism. The merger of your human bioelectrical field with our Lemurian energy matrices, they've never seen anything like it. Nathan turned from the window, still adjusting to his new ability to sense the emotional currents in Arya's luminescence. They're not the only ones studying us, are they? No, she admitted. The Resistance leadership believes our family might be the key to ending the Genetic Council's influence. Not just because of Luna's abilities, but because of what we've become together. A gentle chime announced the arrival of Director Venna, the Resistance's lead scientist. Her ancient pattern spoke of centuries of accumulated wisdom. Your daughter's stabilization has caused quite a stir among our people, she said without preamble. The Genetic Council sought to create the perfect hybrid, but they fundamentally misunderstood what that meant. They thought it was about power, Arya added, moving closer to Nathan. About combining the strongest traits of both species. When it was really about love, Nathan finished, the truth of it resonating through their newly formed family bond. Luna's abilities aren't strong because of genetic engineering. They're strong because she never saw her dual nature as a contradiction. She simply loved both parts of herself, just as she loved both of us. Director Venna's patterns shifted to show approval. Precisely. And now, thanks to your energy transfer, we have proof that humans and Lemurians can form lasting bonds that strengthen both species. The Council's entire philosophy of genetic purity is based on fear, came Luna's voice from the doorway. She stood there in her sleep clothes, her patterns now incorporating subtle elements of both parents' energy signatures. Fear stops the light from growing. Nathan and Arya moved as one to embrace their daughter, their combined energy fields humming in harmony. Director Venna watched with undisguised fascination as the family's merged aura created patterns that shouldn't have been possible. The Council will come for us again, Arya said, voicing the concern that had been simmering beneath their joy of reunion. Let them come, Nathan replied with quiet confidence. Every family they've hunted, every child they've tried to capture, they've all found their way here. We're not alone anymore. No, you're not, Director Venna confirmed. And more are arriving every day. Parents, children, lovers who refuse to be separated by arbitrary genetic barriers. The Council's actions have created exactly what they feared most, a community of humans and Lemurians who see strength in their differences rather than weakness. Luna wiggled free from her parents' embrace and walked to the quantum glass window. The gas giant storms reflected in her eyes as she pressed her hand against the transparent surface. The clouds want to dance, she announced with childlike certainty. They say change is coming. As if in response to her words, the atmospheric lightning began to pulse in new patterns, resonating with the merged energy signatures of the hybrid families throughout the base. Director Venna's patterns displayed shock. Impossible, she breathed. She's harmonizing with the planet's magnetosphere. Even pure-blooded Lemurians can't. I think we need to stop using that word, Nathan suggested, sharing an amused look with Arya. Luna has a way of redefining what's possible. The Council believed that mixing our species would weaken us, Arya said, watching their daughter commune with the gas giant's eternal storms. They never imagined that love could create something greater than the sum of its parts. Director Venna's patterns shifted to display formal recognition. We would like your family to help us establish a new colony. Not a hidden outpost like this one, but an open settlement where humans and Lemurians can live together freely. Your story, your bond, it could inspire others to reject the Council's ideology of separation. Nathan felt Arya's surge of emotion through their link, her hope and anxiety mixing with his own uncertainty. They had just found safety, did they dare risk everything to help others like them? Luna turned from the window, her face serene. The storms say yes, she declared with the simple certainty of a child. Hiding makes the light smaller. Sharing makes it grow. Nathan and Arya exchanged glances, their new bond humming with shared purpose. They had spent 3 years apart, broken by fear and external pressure. Now that they had found their way back together, strengthened by that very separation, perhaps they had something to teach others about the power of choosing love over fear. "When do we start?" Nathan asked. Director Vena's patterns brightened. "There's a system, not far from here. A young star with a habitable planet. The humans call it Kepler 442b. We call it Harmony's Cradle." "Harmony's Cradle," Arya repeated, testing the name. "A place where children like Luna can grow up without hiding what they are." Luna skipped back to her parents, taking both their hands. Where their skin touched, their merged energy created patterns that rippled outward, interacting with the gas giant's magnetic field in ways that would keep scientists puzzled for years to come. "Can we plant a garden there?" Luna asked. "A big one, like Papa's old garden, but with Mama's glowing flowers too?" Nathan lifted his daughter into his arms, feeling the love and hope flowing through their family bond. "We can plant whatever you want, Starlight. This time, we'll watch it grow together." Outside their window, the eternal storms of the gas giant continued their stately dance, their patterns subtly altered by Luna's presence. Change was coming to both their species, not through force or scientific manipulation, but through the simple, revolutionary act of loving across boundaries. The Council had sought to create the perfect hybrid, never realizing that perfection couldn't be engineered, it could only be grown, nurtured by love and acceptance, just like any garden. 3 years of separation had led them here, to this moment of new beginning. As Nathan held his family close, he realized that sometimes the longest journeys weren't measured in light years, but in the distance between two hearts finding their way back together. And in that journey lay the hope for all their people's future.